Greetings, Lighthead here. And given that I just posted a video on which is the best Bond film, I figured it only makes good sense to follow it up with another Bond-related video. A video which will answer a question that has daunted scholars for decades. Entire supercomputers dedicated to answering this question are still wasting their time whirring away in icy government building basements, and savants employed to the same end sit gibbering in their defeated madness in mental asylums. But not us. No, for today we shall finally answer the question. The major, nay, supreme question. I speak, of course, of who is the best Bond. Now, given that I answered a lot of this in a roundabout way in the last video, I will instead quickly skim over the duff parts and then get to the meat of it. So, what did we learn last time? We learned that George Lazenby was the worst. No offense, George, but after hearing all those stories about how you were an egotistical hack on set, and the whole on Her Majesty's Secret Service being rubbish, well, just no. No, George. Okay, so Lazenby's basically going to be everyone's worst Bond, but why am I so strict? Because I love Ian Fleming's books, and to me, the best Bond is the one who most closely reflects the novel version of the character. To this end, I quickly surmise that both Roger Moore and Pierce Brosnan didn't make the cut. Why? Well, despite both of them being awesome, despite both doing brilliant jobs, entertaining the audience, using quippy dialogue, etc., I'm sorry to report that neither are Bond. You see, the novel version of Bond isn't quippy. He's cold, and calculating, and utterly ruthless. He'll do whatever he must to get the job done, and Moore and Brosnan are too human. Too soft. Bond's a killer, but those guys lack the killer instinct. Ergo, they're not the best Bond. They may be the most entertaining to you, but that's not the point of this video, so apologies fellas, but no. Also, Bond had a big scar on his cheek and wasn't terribly handsome, but he had a certain something that women found appealing. It was unspoken, but that element was that he was a killer, and women like dangerous men, even if they deny it. It's merely a primal instinct. Don't get your knickers in a twist over it. He was described as looking like singer and songwriter Hoagy Carmichael, who looks like this. Imagine Bond looking like this, but a bit tougher with a thin vertical scar on his right cheek. That's what Bond really looks like. Surprise! So we have to move on to the remaining actors, and as I made perfectly clear last time, Daniel Craig isn't Bond. God, it's so annoying seeing what he did to Bond over the years, culminating in just killing him off because he was bored of the role. Well, Danny boy, you were very happy to allow Bonds to make you a millionaire, weren't you? You were happy to have all those women fawn over you and attend all those parties and do the adverts and sell out as hard as you could, only to utterly disrespect the character and toss his charred remains under the carpet and appear in only bad films from there on in. Thanks for that. You're such a great guy. In case you have any doubts at this point, I don't like Daniel Craig's Bond. In fact, I think he sucks. Hard. So, Connery and Dalton remaining. I highlighted previously how each met the criteria. Connery had the sleek look and feel, the cold, collected calm, the general sense of a cool-headed assassin. Dalton, on the other hand, read the books and carried them around with him, regularly referencing them to play the character as closely as possible. It's a tight fit, and very hard to separate the two, to be honest. One element to this that's unfair is that Dalton only got to do 2 films as opposed to the 7 films Connery did, and so he got a bit shafted. If we'd seen more of him, it would have helped clarify. But I've only been given a few cards, and I shall have to build a house from them regardless. So, who is truly closest to Fleming's Bond? He was hard-headed, cold, cool, relentless, and a double-hard tough guy, which both actors pulled off. He was also emotional. To this end, Connery only allowed things like rage to manifest very slightly, whereas Dalton played his emotions on his sleeve. An interesting point is it means that Connery was more like Fleming's developed Bond, and Dalton was more like his beginner Bond. before he got fully into the MI6 life. Both are accurate, but reflect different times in Bond's life. This is getting harder. We can also observe that Dalton's films
Stop expecting me to say movie!
feature far less in the way of cheesy Bond, which is to say less quips and gadgets. Connery was more light-hearted, and this also presents a dilemma because Bond wasn't a light-hearted guy. He could make a range of dinner table discussion and was versed in languages, wines, high lifestyle, etc. But Dalton was more akin to the hard-hitting assassin. God, I'm not making this any easier on myself. The truth of the matter is that I've looked at this from several angles, and the only real answer I can see is that they're both great, but for different reasons. Connery and Dalton both reflect Bond exactly the way I see him from the books, only at different times in the character's life. Bond was a very different character before and after Vesper Lynd. He did in fact fall for her before realizing she was a traitor, and his entire demeanor changes radically and drastically from that moment. Even now, I remember rereading the final paragraph of the book over and over again with my jaw hanging open, thinking, holy shit, that's hardcore character development right there. Fleming didn't f*** about. That's right. Yes, ladies and gents, I hate to say it, but like fat kids on sports day at a middle-class primary school, there are no losers here, only winners. Both are Bond. They're just different parts of Bond. I can't separate them. If only we could magically fuse the two together to arrive at a complete Bond. So, there you go. Ultimately, I would again thoroughly recommend you read the books, even if you're not much of a reader, because they're excellent, entertaining, and they hit home. He may be a bit bourgeois, a bit of a misogynist, a bit of a cold SOB, but goddamn, is he the man. Also, the books were written in a different time, so anything that you read that sounds as if it's leaning towards sounding a tad racist isn't intentional. It's just written from the point of view of a very British middle-class gent in an older decade who never lived long enough to see how race relations panned out. Yes, Bond is the man. And who shall be the next Bond? One thing I can tell you for sure is that whoever it is, they won't be a proper Bond. Amazon don't care about respecting intellectual property. They care only for profits. As Joey Swole would tell them,
you need to do better.
Q-Branch stands for queer, Joey.
Bond may indeed be truly dead now. But we've still got the classic books and films, and that's enough. That's enough! Like and subscribe!